So my name's Liam. It's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon, share this with you. We've had some shocking jokes to start off with. I've got a shocking story for you. See what you think about this one. Now, this is a true story, but I think it's incredibly shocking. It's one about a man who makes a decision on what he's investing his life in. And you might appreciate this guy's logic. You see, he founded this company with his colleague, and it was hard work. Made some decent money from this company. Nothing special, mind, but it paid the bills. But the big problem was the workload involved. Actually, it was an incredibly taxing job to keep this company going. And furthermore, the person he founded it with, he didn't really get on too well with him. He found this person cold, manipulative. He actually said that this person, if you had to choose between them and an ice cube, you'd nestle up to the ice cube for more warmth. That's the sort of person he thought this guy was. So you see, he was just miserable investing all his life, all his time, all his resources into this company. So he decided, do you know what? I'll make a change. And he decided to sell the shares that he had in this company, and he sold them for $800, and he went back to doing what he used to do. He was an engineer for slot machines, and that's what he loved doing. So this guy, if you were to look at him, would you say, well, I think he's made a sound decision, maybe? Changed up his life, tried to make it better for himself. I think it sounds fair enough so far. But what if I told you that this man's name was Ron Wayne? This guy here. Does Ron Wayne ring any bells? Probably not. I don't expect many of you have heard of him. Let me share with you his colleague's name, though. His colleague's name was Steve Jobs. And the company they founded together was Apple, who half of us have got phones from and iPods and whatnot. You see, those shares that he sold for $800 back then would now be net worth $32 billion today. He says now, he's 88, he wrote an article a number of years ago telling this story. He says now he doesn't regret his decision. I mean, that's nonsense, isn't it? It's absolutely ludicrous. Well, hindsight is a beautiful thing. If he had known what was going to happen with that company, what was going to happen with Apple, I'm sure he could have put up with Steve, old Ice Cube Steve, a little bit longer, couldn't he? He could have maybe dealt with the hard work and the pressures of keeping this company going just a little bit longer until he could have made the big bucks. Well, I think a revelation like that, if he had known, that would have changed the line up until he was willing to invest up to. Now, I have something more shocking to share with you this afternoon than that story. A shocking revelation that if you haven't actually considered this before, this will change your life today, and it will change what you're invested in. Now, for all of us, there's a line which represents the point which we're willing to invest up to. Now, you see, beyond that line, if you go across, it suddenly becomes not worth it anymore. Up until that point, it's worth investing in. So if Ron knew what was going to happen with Apple, his line would have moved, wouldn't it? He would have gone further this way on what he was willing to invest up to. But can I ask you, what's your line? Where's your line at? Because we're all investing our lives into something. You're investing your time and your attention right now into listening to me. And a bit dangerous for me to ask maybe, but is it a good investment of your time listening to me? What's the line, the point at which it becomes not worth it? Is it when you came here today and you found out I was speaking instead of someone more captivating? Maybe that's the point where you go, it's not worth it anymore. Maybe it's after you've had your sandwiches, you've had the food nicely prepared, you go, right, I've had my fill, now it's not worth it anymore. And maybe it's something to do with this topic that you're desperate to have your say on the topic, and I'd encourage you to do so. But after you've had your say, you've said your bit, and now it's not worth it anymore. We've all got a line. Well, actually, it's not that big an investment to consider how you spend your afternoons, is it? Well, what's the investment line of your life? Your whole life? Well, today we're looking at the question, why was Jesus raised? And if you were here yesterday, you would have heard Rich speaking about why he died. But then, the amazing claim of Christianity is that he was raised from the dead 3 days later. Well, what does that actually mean? What difference does that make? Well, one answer is that Jesus was raised to defeat death, to conquer that, and in so doing, move the investment line of your life. At the end of the day, when we think about Steve Jobs, when we think about Ron Wayne, is it still the fact that Steve Jobs has ended up better off than Ron? Well, actually, no, because in 2011, Steve Jobs, he died. And Ron, well, he's at the age of 88, and he'll soon join him. Sorry if you're close to that, but these are the realities of life. He'll soon join him. And death is the great leveler. Unless, of course, we should be investing our lives beyond the grave. Now, to explain more about what I mean, I'm going to share with you another shocking story, one from the Bible that Jesus taught. So here it is, and actually, if you look on your tables, you see the passages on there for yourself, so you can read it through with me. So at the beginning, Jesus told his disciples, there was a rich man whose manager was accused of wasting his possessions. So he called him in and he asked him, what is this I hear about you? Give an account of your management, because you can't be my manager any longer. Uh-oh. This guy, he's in for the sack, isn't he? He's getting pulled up before the boss. He knows he's getting called into the office and he knows what it's for. So the guy's got a plan. The manager said to himself, what shall I do now? My master is taking away my job. I'm not strong enough to dig. I'm ashamed to beg. I know what I'll do. So that when I lose my job here, people will welcome me into their houses. So the boy's got a plan. He's going to make the last days of his work count for something. So this is what he does. So he called in each one of his master's debtors. He asked the first, how much do you owe my master? 3,000 liters of oil, he replied. The manager told him, take your bill, sit down quickly, and make it 1,500. Make it less. And then he asked a second, how much do you owe? 30 tons of wheat, he replied. Well, he told him, come here, quickly. Take your bill, make it 24. Well, that's pretty devious, isn't it? Can you see what he's doing? You see, what he's doing now is he's knocking off the debts of his master. It's not with his money, it's his master's money. And he's doing so that they will be grateful to him, so that when he loses his job, they might take pity on him and look after him. Well, you might be surprised. This is the real shocking bit, not just the shocking behavior, of what happens next. The master commended the dishonest manager because he had acted shrewdly. Now, he must have thought, this master, okay, this manager that I've employed, he is a piece of work. He is a rotten apple. He's a piece of work, but he's a clever piece of work. I can't let him go for work for someone else. He's too valuable. He's too canny. I can't let him go. But here's the even more shocking thing. Forget what the master thinks. What does Jesus think? Even more shocking is that Jesus seems to commend this man as well. And so he concludes the story by saying this: for the people of this world, are more shrewd in dealing with their own kind than they are the people of light? I tell you, use worldly wealth to gain friends for yourselves, so that when it's gone, you'll be welcomed into eternal dwellings. Jesus gives this man the thumbs up. Now, are you not surprised that Jesus tells this story? I thought Jesus was a good man, perfect man, we heard on Monday. It seems he commends a guy who essentially robs his master blind. I mean, that's not just morally dubious, is it? It's just plain wrong. It doesn't take us much to work out that he's a dishonest guy. But you've got to understand what Jesus is commending. He's not commending and saying, this is an upstanding moral citizen, an example to follow. He's not like our Bev. Now, you're going to get this all week, aren't you? He's not an upstanding example. So what is Jesus saying? Jesus is saying this guy has got his head in the right place. This guy is a clever cookie. Now, what was clever about the manager? Well, this guy had right sense. He had the right sense to prepare for the future. He had the right sense to make the most of the time and the resources that he had now, that last day of work, before the inevitable happened. He had the right sense to try and preserve his life. That's a sensible thing to do. He had the right sense to act on the knowledge that he had available to him. This guy, he had sense. And Jesus is therefore challenging all the people that he's telling this story to, all the people listening to him. Folks, do you have sense? Do you have sense like this manager? Jesus today is asking each of you, do you have sense? Because this manager knew that there was life after the sack. And he had to get ready for it. If his life wasn't going to end when he lost his job, then he needed to get ready for life after losing his job. But what about the inevitable that we all face? For some of us, it's not unemployment that we fear. There's another inevitable that unites all of us. It's death. We're all one day going to die. And maybe for you, that represents the line up to which point you're willing to invest. You live your life for life and up to that point. Now, many of us have the sense to put stuff away for the future. Maybe you're saving up for the kids. Maybe saving up for the grandkids. Maybe you're saving up for a rainy day, saving up for some future goal or accomplishment. But you invest your life in this life and this life only. That's the line. What if you discovered that there was life after death? Just like this manager realized that there was life after the sack. Would that change the investment line of your life? Now, I think if you've got sense, it should do. This is one reason why Jesus was raised from the dead, so that you can have confidence investing in life after death. Jesus died and he was laid in a tomb. But the amazing claim of Christianity is that not only that Jesus died for us, but he was then raised back to life again. And this changes everything, because it means if Jesus rose from the dead, then death has been defeated. Death isn't necessarily the end. That line drawn saying life ends in death has now been taken away. The resurrection of Jesus shows us that life doesn't end with death. And if that's the case, we need security for the life after death. Are you confident you will be secure after your death? Now, thinking back to Ron Wayne, poor old Ron, we do have sympathy for him, don't we? He didn't know Apple was going to take off. How could he have done? He can't look into a crystal ball and see that. How was he to know that he invested poorly? But actually, you might be thinking, oh, are you trying to make me bank on something that may happen in the future? No, of course I'm not. I'm asking you to look back on something that's already happened. I'm not asking you to look in a crystal ball and see what's in the future. I'm asking you to look back at the resurrection of Jesus Christ, a historical fact, and make your decision on what you invest your life in based on that. It's a fact of history we can actually look back on. And the question is, how are you going to respond to the information that there is life after death? Because we've seen someone live life after death. Does that not move the line of what you're willing to invest up to? Now, if you've got sense, you'll be looking to preserve yourself, not only in this life, of course you want to do it in this life, but also the life to come. Because life doesn't end with death. Do you have the sense to preserve your eternity? Now, if you do, can I encourage you to consider how you use your time now? Act on this knowledge. Be like the shrewd manager and take drastic action even. Maybe you've come here, I don't know why you've come here. Maybe you've come here, you purely came out of intrigue. Maybe you didn't have anything better to do, so you thought, why not? I'll get a free meal as well. And maybe you've actually been weighing up the claims of Christianity for a while now, trying to discover whether it's true or not. I don't know why you've come, but you now know that there is life after death. The resurrection of Jesus proves it. What are you going to do with that information? I would suggest that you spend your time settling your business with God. You've got Christians around you. There'll be some Christians on your table. Maybe someone who invited you. Obviously, me, Rob, other people here. You could chat to them, couldn't you? I don't mind. You could ask us really tough questions, things that you've wondered about for a long time, things that you wouldn't actually ask your nice Christian friend. You can throw them at someone ugly like me. That's fine. But will you actually do that? Will you take time? We've got some literature on the back table there, things to help you think through the claims of Christianity. Will you actually take one, read it, and look into the claims of Christianity? You could do, couldn't you? You've got 2 more opportunities this week. Tomorrow, Rob's speaking, and then Scott exploring these big why questions. You could come, couldn't you? You could invest that time. Invest the time you've got in this life, securing the life to come. Because maybe you think that exploring Christianity is a risky thing. It's risky business. Because what if this is all there is? Maybe I should be living it up right now and not like sitting around here eating cold sandwiches, but trying to make the most of life. Well, actually, why would you want to get bogged down with all this Jesus chat if there's nothing afterwards? But I think that's why the resurrection of Jesus is so important. It's so important for those who actually want to follow him and want to be secure for the life after. The resurrection shows it's no risk to invest, even radically, in the life to come. You see, there's no time you're going to lose out on here that you're not going to make back in eternity. There's no pleasure that you're going to miss out on here that's not going to be superseded by knowing Jesus eternally. Invest in everything in your life now instead of the life to come. Well, I think that amounts to selling your shares for $800 when they could be worth $32 billion. You don't have to be like Ron Wayne. You don't have to be like Steve Jobs either, thankfully. Jesus has conquered death. Now, can I implore you to consider that claim, consider the truth of that, and have the right sense to invest your life fully in him. Thank you for listening. I'm going to hand over to Rob now.